Welcome to Backstory and Beyond. My name is John Daniel, humbled to be your host, but I am super thrilled to be here with a good friend and wonderful professional, and his name is Matt Quirk. Matt, welcome, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, John. It's great to see you.
Brother, it's been a long time since I think was it Amsterdam or was it
It
Las
was
Vegas
Las
we met?
Vegas, I think,
Okay,
last time
excellent.
we saw each
The
other.
NAB show. Excellent,
That's right.
excellent. Man, and folks, I just want to say the same thing I said to Matt when I spoke to him this morning. He is no stranger. As soon as you see him, you'll find an amicable, kind of engaging guy. And I just love being here again with him because it's been a long time. Sir, thank you for coming to the show. Matt is the general manager of Supermicro out of London, England, UK, and is doing wonderful things with that company. That'll be a good part of our discussion today. But I want to start just by sharing again the point of Backstory and Beyond is to help people be their best. And we look at issues such as purpose, calling, peak human potential, and finally, service to others. These are the things that go along with certain ideas that make life worth living, like forgive, believe, serve, these kinds of things. All that said, Matt, um, let's start with what is wonderfully important. What knits you together to be as successful as you are? Please share your backstory, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Once again, thanks for having me on your show. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to speak to little old me. So thank you. What can I tell you? I'm a husband and a father of two. First, I have a dog. Uh, my dog is 8. My children are 10 and 12. So they're all in the same sort of bracket. We live just south of London, as you alluded to, in a small country village, which I value that grounding a great deal, especially the working week can be pretty hectic, pretty fast paced. So I genuinely appreciate having that time in the village with the family. Professionally, I lead business development for Supermicro across EMEA, as you mentioned. And I've been with the company close to 8 months now. Before that, I've been in the technology sector for many, many years. I started on the technical and engineering side, and then I moved to the commercial and leadership roles with companies like HP and SanDisk before that. From a backstory perspective, I grew up again in the south of England in a family of school teachers, actually. So things like schoolwork and sports fixtures and timetables, they were a big part of my early life for sure. And then at the age, I think I was 19, I got the opportunity to go and work in Australia, which was I took, and that was to go and work on a remote plant where they liquefied natural gas in the northwest, this tiny little town called Karratha. And, there wasn't much there. It was a tough, very isolated place. But it, from a backstory standpoint, taught me quite a bit about resiliency and adaptability, I would say. It was extremely, extremely hot. um, and then I came back to the UK. I started work as a field engineer around the city of London. I used to look after 1,000 customers within a square mile. So we're pretty packed in there. And then I started my own business and sold that as in the same industry, and then moved through various iterations of the technology sector, from distribution to service providers, and then into the technology manufacturing side. So I guess when I look back, my career's really been a progression of fixing technology to then advising and talking about technology. And then I guess I've ended up now helping organizations how to use it strategically. So I guess that's a little about me, John.
Matt, that is wonderful. And it gives me a sense of things I did not know. I mean, you've gone through to get breakthroughs. And I'm sure the people that you are aligned with understand that you don't mind picking up the shovel. You don't mind doing some work with them. And it sounds also like you're aspiring to see them be their best, which is the essence of this show. All that said, when you look at your company, please tell us about it a little bit more in depth, which is going to lead to what your leadership responsibilities are too. But take your time, sir.
Sure. Before I do that, John, I hope you don't mind me improvising a little bit here, but I want to touch on that note that you talked about. I'm not afraid to pick up the shovel. That wasn't always true. I have to tell you, right? So my work ethic definitely evolved, let's say, as my sense of responsibility evolved or developed. When I was younger, I was probably focused a little bit more on the experiencing life rather than building a career in a very sort of disciplined way. My parents both being teachers meant that I was probably a little less aligned with that view of learning and hard work. I was probably more concerned with kind of why would I need to know that instead of why should I do it and the right reasons.
But see,
once
Matt,
I
that's
got it,
that transparency I was I about. See,
oh,
that's the
okay, there you go.
honesty and a truth that makes a difference, man. It's like
Well, I
when you
just I just want to be clear with you.
hey, I'm
Yeah.
no saint, right? I love it,
Yeah.
man. And
Okay,
I
cool.
appreciate just how honest you are, man. But look, let's talk about your company a little bit and
Hmm.
share your thoughts. And by the way, thank you for going to that point. It's much appreciated.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Well, so let me tell you about Supermicro because I get very excited about this. So they're a global IT infrastructure company. Historically, probably a lot of people knew Supermicro for kind of niche stuff. So high performance servers, very fast time to market with the latest technology. But today, and the company's been going since 1993, the business is much broader than that. What makes it particularly relevant now in the world of AI, this AI era, is we're not just making technology products. We're providing infrastructure for this AI era. It's really kind of evolved as a company selling parts to a company that's selling solutions out there into the market quickly and efficiently. So that's a little bit about the company. What else do you want to know?
Well, let's come back to that to some extent. When you say parts, are you talking about hardware, such as Cisco equipment going into a data center? What kind of things are you talking about?
Great example. So yes, it's exactly like that. So we're a hardware technology vendor. So we build computer servers, storage, networking infrastructure to go into data centers to make things work, to make IT solutions work. And that has evolved now to be a combination of those things, as well as software on top to manage that hardware infrastructure. But all the way now, instead of just talking about servers and storage, now we talk about liquid cooling infrastructure. We talk about building infrastructures, land, power, water. It's a much broader conversation than just hey switches that go into data centers.
I love it. And something you didn't know about me, I facilitated building the infrastructure for the internet in metropolitan Philadelphia. Fiber optic footprint, e-commerce incubators, carrier hotels, we used to call them then. Now they call them data
Yeah,
centers. So working with Cisco and various organizations was something we did. And the electric company loved it because we were going to get paid for electricity or whatever we provided to cool the equipment. I love it,
yeah.
man. I mean, you have had an exciting career, and I want to hear more about it. Now, in terms of your leadership responsibilities, tell me a little bit more about that and what it is that you'd like to achieve in the next year or two or five.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. I think two pieces to this really. My leadership responsibility to the company is to connect strategy to execution in the world of business development, really. In simple terms, that means translating or understanding really what customers, partners, technology alliance partners need, and then aligning that with our capabilities at Supermicro, and then making sure that those things, turn from just conversations into reality, so that you end up having an actual outcome for the broader ecosystem, be that societal or for businesses. So that's the one side. I think from the other side, my leadership responsibility for my team members, and they'll know this, sits in three important headings, John. So first one is to provide them with the vision to inspire them to succeed. I think it's so important. It's not the job, right? Why are we doing this job? What's the vision? How do we really create a purpose there? So that's number one. Number two, because I think, just going back on that, true passion really demands a kind of reason, and that's how you create that vision. The second piece is unconditional access to personal and professional development. I think it's really important for my team to feel like they can grow. So I see that as a responsibility as a leader. And then the third piece is creating a framework that drives that accountability. So that we know, all these great things like a vision and the platform to develop as individuals and as a company, we need the accountability piece to make sure every day we're moving things forward to the next step. So they're the three pieces of the puzzle I think I see as my leadership responsibilities to the team.
It's awesome. I'm curious now, it just begs the question, are you part of attracting, training, and retaining employees that you want to help develop, or is that a separate HR department?
I'm passionate about it. I want to give the right people the right opportunities with our company. So yeah, we have an HR department like many other companies of our size and scale, for sure, but I'm very much a part of that process, helping frame those roles and requirements that we have for the jobs that are open, all the way through that interview process, all the way through the onboarding and buddy processes. I think it's so important to do it right, to make people feel welcome and to give them the best platforms for success. So yes, absolutely, I'm involved.
I love it, man. I mean, I like the way you frame that, offering an on-ramp and a platform for success. Look one more step deeper. When you have received these individuals and they're moving on the platform, what kind of things do you do to help them develop?
Good question. So to my mind, the possibilities are endless. Now, some in the company may say, look, we haven't got unlimited budget, but I think there's multiple ways in which we can improve as human beings, and some of that can be very academic. In my previous roles, I've certainly put in place upskilling opportunities for my team members where there's been one-on-one coaching. We've done group sessions where we're talking about improving capabilities with regards to sales, with regards to customer excellence, with regards to other parts of the business. So really, people would call them the soft skills, if you will, trying to create a professional development profile within that. There's the other side, which is product technology and market awareness training as well. So I think depending on where people are, firstly in their career journey, but also where they are in their family life too, is really important, because some of these things take a lot of time and effort and kind of two-way learning process. Others are just ingest, so you have that knowledge. So I'm conscious that we can't do everything for everybody, but what I say to my team members is, what do you want to go off and do? What do you want to learn about? How do you want to develop? And then if we've got a framework to support it, great. If we haven't, let's go see if we can develop it.
I love it. You're letting those employees own their progress in conjunction with you. And I love this idea of work-life balance because it's hard to get something out of a person that's worried about home. So I love it, man. Under your leadership, how were things when you actually arrived at Supermicro, and how have things evolved under your leadership? What's the next step? What else do you want? And take your time, man. There's no rush here. I'm listening, sir.
I appreciate it. So I came from a larger organizations in terms of people to where I am today. But the growth trajectory of this company that I'm at now is huge. And so as you grow an organization, you kind of stretch it like that. And as a result, you can create pockets of holes, right? So that need filling by people or process or operational capability. And And so that was, for me personally, one of the biggest challenges, but one of the most exciting things, because if it doesn't exist today, that means we can create it in the best image that it should be based on all the experience of the team. And, when I came in, we sat down with the team and said, okay, there was an existing team and now we're growing that team. What works well, what doesn't work so well, where do we want to go as a team, and we try to build, or I try to build that feedback into my leadership to share what the vision could be for us as a team and as a company here in EMEA. Now, how has it changed? I think mainly probably from the visionary standpoint, we now are locked in on where we want to go, and it's like I say, I'm 8 months in, and to get to that progress where everybody knows what they're doing, where they're going, and why they're doing it has been really important to me. One of the biggest parts of that was moving from, we're an incredible technology company. The products that we make are world class, and we like to talk about that, but something that customers like to hear is the so what, right? What does it do for me? What is the outcome? How does it help me, with my ambitions and my goals and visions as a person, but as a company, as an overall society, if you're talking about, particular public sector engagement. And so that transition from having product-led conversations to real kind of, okay, well, let's understand what you want to achieve, and then we'll try and map that back to what we're able to deliver you. That's probably one of the changes that I've been most proud to be a part of.
That's outstanding, man. It really is. There's lots of things that are coming to mind, but I'm gonna stay on gear because we have to have some more conversations. I love what I'm hearing, and let me just underscore this. I have no doubt, though you've been there 8 months, you're bringing the veracity and rigor and thoroughness of your entire career to Supermicro. And so everything you've said, these are advanced thoughts for people who influence change. They're leaders, but influence is probably a better word because you can't make somebody do something they don't want to do. But that vision you talked about, when a person is given that vision through experience, exposure, and professional example, they can create an in-game cycle and then go to the next. And I love it, sir. And I'm coming back to a fundamental idea called transformation and change. Um, what's your strategy in this world, in the era we live, where there's transformative things happening for better or more challenging? From the political realm to the economic realm, how do you manage the massive change the globe is going through right now?
Well, that's probably the biggest question I think you could have asked me today, John. I think that's I think managing change is always difficult, and at the moment, change seems to be the only constant, I would say. But I think I personally try and look at it in all of those layers, hopefully at once. So look at the highest level, country levels, whatever it may be. Sovereignty is a big thing that comes up at the moment. These are the areas that shape those very big decisions. They're where those are made. And then at a country or regional market level, that sort of those priorities begin to shift to depending on the economy or the industry mix that's there, the maturity of the market, pace of investment that's going on specifically there. City level, it's how do we make it much more practical for the citizens, for the infrastructure? We talked about infrastructure earlier. Strength of the local ecosystem, because I think that's important in any country to be successful. And then community level. So I'm talking outside the company really here, but change when it comes to jobs, skills, partnerships, that kind of stuff. It's really where the rubber meets the road, and I think that's where you see that people actually feel included in the opportunities that come around, like AI, for example, or the challenges that come around with geopolitics, that sort of stuff. And I think it's important to try and keep these, while separate layers, very much connected, so that you can see where one affects the other. One of the best pieces of advice that I got from a previous mentor was, very simple actually. Was you got to walk and chew gum, and I'd never heard it before. And I questioned, well, what do you mean by that? Well, you've got to be able to look at more than one thing at once and be able to strategically think, okay, this affects that, that affects that, but I march forward with each of those things. So yeah, walk and chew gum.
Absolutely. Malcolm Gladwell, the tipping point is a domino effect. And that
Yeah.
ecosystem that you spoke of is so extremely important. Clearly, today, the word tariff has impacted many companies across the world. And I don't mean that in any criticism for direction coming out of any country. I'm simply saying that one has to realign how they do business. That said, when you think about that ecosystem you talked about, from the home to the block to the city to the state, province, what it might be, and to the country, uh, on your mind right now in reference to Supermicro, what are some of the biggest challenges, which also are opportunities, by the way, as you
Well,
well
yeah,
know? What are some of the
yeah.
biggest challenges, one or two, that you're seeing as you sit in your leadership position now?
Well, so
Let me write that down.
that's one way of looking at it. Now, if I look at it through, my own business lens, I think, well, first one is the pace of change, and I look at it from technology, of course, but that can be markets, regulations, like you're saying, tariffs, expectations, changing, that sort of stuff. That's a challenge because it's making you, or there's the question of making important decisions very quickly, with less certainty and less time than you previously would have had. So that's a challenge, definitely. The second is complexity, because of that macro level of things that are going on right now, particularly, and probably into the future. And if I put that into Supermicro terms, one of the biggest issues we face is not everybody sits in one category or one kind of single point. So we can't solve for one scenario and then assume we can replicate that across every possible thing that people are trying to solve for. So it means that our product range, if you will, has to become much bigger, and we have to kind of connect those dots, as I was alluding to. Really getting feedback from the field. And then the third, and I would say arguably most important thing, is trust, because
Mm.
in times of change that are so rapid, people, they're looking for leadership, they're looking for confidence, that you're acting with clarity, but also with responsibility. And then, and for me, acting with integrity is extremely important. Certainly one of my tenets, and I want to make sure that people understand I make decisions for the right reasons. And that, that applies to not just within the team, but as a company, but as in these ecosystems as a whole. I think it's important that everybody works together, because you can end up being polarizing effects otherwise.
I love it. And it brought me back to something else that you were sharing before, how important the team is. Every team member has their own leadership platform. And keeping an eye on the market and what they do from their subject matter expertise is critical. And I just think that all that you've said, and as you were speaking, I was thinking of McKinsey and Company. You literally were salient points from some of the folks who are looking at this all over the world. And brother, this is a guy that just thinks anybody working with you is extremely fortunate and blessed. So I appreciate this, man. And you know, when you address these things, just real briefly, how do you go about that? You kind of talked about it, but let's give me an example. Supply chain.
Well, we manufacture more than most. Let's put it that way. So
Okay, okay.
we certainly do have supplier partners. Yeah, absolutely. We have a supply chain that is extremely important to us. Yeah.
And can you, if you can, name a couple people or organizations that are working with you, and
Mm-hmm.
what it entails in terms of the importance to, Supermicro?
Sure. When we don't have a good relationship with our supply chain, it affects revenue for us, obviously, it's important, but it also affects outcomes for customers. And that can be, as it could be innocuous, like, well, it means their email server might not get upgraded this month. But it could mean much more than that. It could mean life-saving IT equipment in a hospital is not going to get
Mm.
deployed. It could mean that a shipping port is closed or down for a month, and that costs the economy and local jobs and all that kind of stuff. So it can be pretty serious. And so names of companies that we work with very closely: Intel, AMD, Nvidia, Samsung, Hynix, a number of technology vendors that most people would be familiar with. And we have to work incredibly collaboratively across all aspects of the supply chain. Now, we are fundamentally an engineering company, John, so we love getting into a lab and working with these partners to figure out what we can invent next. And that's great, right? Because we're always, or one of, if not the first to market with this collaborative technology that comes out in the marketplace. But that's engineering, and that's one piece of it, right? We've got finance, legal, logistics, product marketing, go to market. I mean, support. All of these things have to come together, and it's really important that you don't treat them as just yours. It's not just our company's resources there. These companies, these resources need to be mapped to the resources that our ecosystem and alliance and technology partners, because our finance team needs to be connected to their finance team. We want to run things like shared pipelines to understand where the market is moving, where the demand is coming from, where we need to work harder in different geographies, where the opportunity is higher in a particular vertical industry. Supply chain is such a complex topic, but absolutely critical for not just our success, because we want to grow as a company, but for our customers and end users, it's vitally important.
And the way you described it was so, you painted a canvas, and it really is good to understand how clear that picture is. And you started, and if I seem like I'm redundant here, forgive me, you started by describing and painting the same canvas internally. Because all of those departments you mentioned, which will have to collaborate with your supply chain, have to be intact. They need to have some joy in coming to work. And your vision and your hard work is helping them do that. All that said, particularly around joy, a couple things I want to do before we close. But first and foremost, I want to ask you about where your family fits into all this. And then finally, or two things finally, I want to play a word association game with you, real simple. You can either use a word to respond or a sentence or a paragraph, whatever you want. And then
Okay.
finally, if we've missed anything, I want to make sure I give you the opportunity to share anything we have. But let's come back to the main thing, your
All right.
family. How do they fit into this wonderful work you're doing?
Oh man, it's so important. Family for me is central to how I lead and how I show up at work. It keeps you grounded. I mentioned at the beginning, right? It keeps me level-headed at every stage. It reminds you that, well, it definitely reminds you that it's not about things like title or visibility. It's about responsibility, consistency, all those kind of things, both in and out of family. And the examples that you set with your family should, kind of echo in work. I don't want to make it too fluffy here, John, but I think it's really important. That grounding gives me a real perspective. I also think, even in the corporate world, when it's natural, I think bringing a little of our human side, our family life into conversations with colleagues, with technology partners and supply chain, I think that helps bring or build stronger relationships, more rewarding, mutually rewarding relationships. And I think the best, well, the best leaders, but the best team members in general, I think, are the ones who remain ambitious, of course, but without losing that humanity of, hey, my family is why I'm here, right? Yes, I want everybody to be successful, but my family is why I'm here. And so I trust the team to dig into their work. Of course, we've all got to work hard, but I think it's equally important to respect and nurture our family life to keep that balance and perspective on why we're there.
I think that's the operative word. Why? Why do we do this on behalf of our family? That said, Let's do a little word association game.
All right.
And by the way, I'll be in London this year, and I want to break some bread with you, man. So I'm looking forward to meeting everybody I can. Huh,
Amazing.
word association game relative to the foundation of this show. First word to be four sets of words. Purpose.
Oh, purpose. Personal purpose would be, I think, very easy for me actually, as I'm trying to think of the commercial one, is to be good. And I think that encompasses and it encompasses being good for and good to. So that's my answer from a personal standpoint. From a
Outstanding. One of the best answers I've heard across this globe. I love it.
oh,
It's simple and
thank
to
you.
the point. Calling.
Calling. I always feel my calling is to solve problems. Now, I'm going to caveat that right?
Wait.
Because
Did you say sell problems?
solve
Okay,
problems. No, not
solve
sell
problems.
problems,
Okay.
solve problems. But I'm still going to caveat that because I love doing it for customers, right? That's amazing. That's what brings me joy at work is solving complex problems that customers have. I also love to do it in my personal life. And sadly, I'm not as good at it because I try and get involved in things like fixing cars and DIY and all that sort of stuff. And despite my best efforts, I'm nowhere near as successful at that as I am for trying to solve other people's problems at work.
I love it, man. Okay. Do you have, and this is the expression, peak human potential. Do you have one?
Explain it more, John. What do you mean by
Sure. I
peak
mean,
human?
what's the precipice of what you think you can accomplish in your
Oh,
career,
gosh.
in your
Okay.
life? You know, the expression from peak human potential quite often is used with athletes. Gotham
Mm-hmm.
Chopra, who does the religion of sports, uses that expression as he talks to Serena Williams of the world. When he was alive, Kobe Bryant, Simone Biles. You know, is
Right.
there a peak that you can reach in this lifetime? Now, see, you don't have to play basketball or tennis, but you've got this brain and a desire to be joyful more each day.
Yeah.
Is there something for you that you think you can reach, or is it boundless?
For me, well, boundless is probably something I would aspire to because for me, it's trying to make a difference every day, and that is in my personal life, trying to develop what I know and what I'm capable of. In my family life, to make sure that they have a better and the next iteration of what they're trying to achieve. At work, trying to improve, simple as improving a process. I love, like I said, solving problems. So making a difference every day. I think if I was able to do that to the point where I'm done, that would be my peak peak point.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Last word. Service.
Service is one very dear to my heart, and I'm a member of various communities that do give service in ways financial and time and other aspirational ways. I think it is incredibly rewarding from a selfish standpoint. I feel great about being able to do those kind of things. I feel privileged to be in a position to be able to do those things. But I also think it gives joy. I hope it gives joy to others even more. So it's a big part of my life, John.
I love it, sir. As we close, I would be remiss in not sharing with my friend the opportunity to share anything that he wants to. I'm sure we missed a lot, but the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you. I've very much enjoyed talking to you as always do, John. I think right now we're at a very important moment, both culturally and from a business perspective. From my side, I've always been involved in innovation, and that is creating enormous opportunity for everybody at the moment, and incredible creativity too. But it's also asking a lot. It's asking a lot of leaders, both at a country level, a global level, all the way down to a company level. It's asking a lot of institutions around the world. And so I think I would like to be a part of, and think that I am a part of an organization that is driving that innovation forward, but is also trying to collaborate with other people and other businesses across the world to make a difference. Like I said, personally, I like to make a difference. I think the company I work for, Supermicro, makes a difference in the world. But collaboration is really important to me. So that's, I guess, my final comment towards bringing everybody together.
Oh man, I love it. And underscored and at the nucleus of everything you just finished with is that innovation requires inclusion of the people that work with you, of the people inside, internal, and external to the company. So I've just had a joyful time listening to you, brother. And I look forward to seeing you soon in London. I'll let you know, before it should be about September. And I'll let you know. Hopefully, we'll be able to catch up with each other.
I'll
Blessings.
be here waiting, John. I can't wait. Yeah.
Man. I'll see you soon. That's a wrap.
All right. Take
Hey,
care.
take care. Blessings.